What's up, everyone? Good morning. It is patch notes day. Technically, I guess it's not morning anymore, but it's time to go over all things Naga, all things coming to Battlegrounds, any changes happening. Let's go. First and foremost, important information, your MMR is going to be reset tomorrow after you play your first game. So you play your first game, you're going to be like, hey, my MMR is still the same. Play your game is going to go back to 0. We're starting from a clean slate. Buddies will be leaving. Buddies are gone. RIP. I will miss you, but I'm ready for you to go. This one's quite interesting. The cost of going up to Tavern 5 is now back to 9 gold, no longer 11 gold. Greedy Sway is quite happy about this. This is a pretty interesting quality of life update. So heroes with transforming hero powers can now see the progress of the hero power by hovering it. There's a bit of a text change. Anything that says for next combat or for next combat only now says until next turn for consistency. So nothing changes, just a text change there. Now, we talked a lot about Spellcraft. This is the new keyword coming to Battlegrounds. And if you want to know more about Spellcraft, actually go ahead and check out my last video that I made from the day 1 and 2 reveals. We really deep dive into what Spellcraft can be, but that will be coming to Battlegrounds as well. For the first 2 weeks of the patch, Naga will be in every single game, but after that 2 weeks, it will be rotating out just like every other minion type. So now 4 minion types out instead of 3. We know about our brand new hero coming to Battlegrounds, Queen Ashara. When your warband reaches 30 total attack, you begin your Naga Conquest, which is a 1-cost hero power where you can discover a Naga. Important to note that players with Battlegrounds perks will be able to play Queen Ashara before formal release on May 24th. Now, I already deep dived into most of these brand new minions, so we'll kind of cover them very, very briefly. But first, I want to talk about all of the new stuff, and then we can get into the minions. We saw some things coming out of the minion pool. We saw Spore being removed, Flat Tusk being removed. Of course, Amalgadon is gone, and Seafood Slinger as well. And it seems that Champion of Yashraj will also be leaving. Nightmare Amalgam is coming back as a tier 3 minion, and I'm quite excited about this. Bristleback Knight, which is that Wind Fury Quillbore, is coming back with 5 attack. And I really like the dev comment that they included in the patch notes. Now I'm going to read this verbatim because I think that it's really important and very insightful. Amalgadon was fun while it lasted, but it led to endgame warbands feeling very similar over time. Amalgadon served 3 different roles in design: a flexible minion for all minion types, a menagerie driver, and a chance for a comeback against opponents who have scaled stats bigger than yours. It's time for something fresh, so we've distributed these roles across a few minions in this patch: Nightmare Amalgam, Mantid Queen, and Leroy the Reckless. Additionally, this change reflects an update to our Battlegrounds design philosophy. Whenever we introduce a new minion type or a major system, we plan to also release other minion pool changes like this in order to keep the game fresh no matter how you play. I love that. I think that's fantastic. We are also seeing some changes to the armor system. Now, Buddies drastically shook up the armor system. We saw armor completely leave and then come back as it was needed. And I think that was a really important thing because Buddies changed the power level of a lot of heroes. Now we're seeing some armor reverts. We're seeing some changes overall. So check out the blog post for more details on what heroes belong in what armor tier. There will be a link to the blog post in the description. Okay, if you want to hear me speak passionately about how much I love Naga, you can check out my last video as well, because I literally talk about it so much. So instead of talking about how amazing I think these cards are, I'm just going to really briefly discuss them and go over synergies. On tier 1, we have the mini Myrmidon, or I guess it's Myrmidon. Myrmidon? We have the mini Myrmidon and the Shell Collector. The mini Myrmidon has a spellcraft effect of +2 attack, and then the Shell Collector is a battle cry that gives you a gold, so we have an economy unit coming back after losing Tidehunter. Both of these cards have a pretty predictable stat line for a tier 1 minion, nothing crazy about either of their stat lines. The +2 attack on the Myrmidon does seem very, very good, and definitely a powerful unit if you are looking to just damage your opponent's early game. But I do think that's not really going to be the thing anymore without Buddies in, because you don't really need to complete the buddy meter by doing as much damage as possible. So I think that that's going to change the way people play the game. Absolutely. We have 3 minions on tier 2 coming in. We have the Deep Sea Angler, which gives +3 health and taunt, and that is a spellcraft card. We also have the Snail Cavalry, which has some pretty good synergy if you already have a mini Myrmidon. It's once per turn. It's a once per turn effect, and it's gain +2 health after a spell is played once per turn. So you play mini Myrmidon on turn 1, turn 2 you level on a standard curve, turn 3 you play this Snail Cavalry, and you're getting some pretty good stats on your board between the spellcraft of the Myrmidon and also the once per turn effect on the Snail Cavalry. And last but not least, on tier 2, probably one of my favorite cards coming out with Naga, I had to think about it, is Lava Lurker. I can't imagine that this minion is going to live on tier 2 for very long. I imagine it's going to get nerfed to tier 3, but each first spellcraft spell played on this minion is permanent. I get that you don't have access to the best spellcraft minions when you're like just getting to tier 2. However, the scaling on this is like really, really good. Like really, really good. And the fact that it starts at a base stat of 2/5, gross. Okay. I could talk about Lava Lurker for a really long time, apparently. Moving on to Stormscale Siren. I love the tempo of this Siren. At the end of your turn, each of your spellcraft minions play the spell on themselves. So you can use a spellcraft on another minion, and then they also get the effect of their own spellcraft. That's solid tempo. It's not bad. It's definitely going to help warbands become stronger. And in a full like spellcraft board, like if you run a full spellcraft board, it feels really, really good. Also on tier 3, we have the Shoal Commander. Give a minion +1/+1 for each friendly Naga until next turn. The synergy with the Shoal Commander and the Lava Lurker, and then also like the Stormscale Siren, like there's so much synergy there, and that's only on tier 3 so far, so that feels very, very good. Additionally, on tier 3, we have Poshmar the Vengeful. This is an Avenge unit. It is Avenge 3, so when 3 minions die, you get a spellcraft spell from your tavern tier or lower. If there were like a Menagerie Naga, I feel like this wouldn't be the worst to include because spellcraft spells are pretty good techs in general. Also, Naga aren't really like a summoning minion type, so if you're trying to run a full Naga board and also include this minion, it doesn't make a lot of sense because not a lot of things are going to die. It's almost like when you run an elemental board and you're transitioning out of the Avenge with the light spawn into a full elemental board. Like you're not going to get as much light spawn value. So I think that that's not necessarily meant for a Naga board. I think it's more meant for a Menagerie board or maybe some synergy with some different minion types. Moving on to tier 4, we have the Wave Rider. This is a 2/8 with a spellcraft of give a minion +1/+1 and Wind Fury until the next turn. Played on itself, it's not that strong considering it's only 2/8 base stats. However, this minion also wouldn't be terrible in a Menagerie comp, especially considering you could buff with like Mug or Jug or something like that and make those stats worthwhile to put the spellcraft on this unit. It also plays really well in a spellcraft Naga comp. On tier 4, we have the Eventide Brute. After you cast a spell, gain +1/+1. Now this works with literally every spell as we've discussed in the past. Coins, bananas, gems, all of the things, including also the spellcraft. So I imagine the scaling on this is going to be really, really gross, especially if you find it pretty early after arriving on tier 4. I even potentially would start to consider tripling into 4s again. Like these Nagas on 4 are so far quite strong. Like I'm pretty sure if you go to Tavern tier 3 and then you triple into that 4 on the same turn, like that scaling would be so good. Also on tier 4 is the Eelbound Archer that gives +8 attack with a spellcraft spell. Now using that in conjunction with the +1/+1 Wind Fury, like putting both of these on one unit, that does feel very, very good. Also keep in mind that it does not give Divine Shield though. So just Wind Fury with a lot of attack, so could still die. Next on tier 4, we have the Reef Explorer. This is a nice economy unit that discovers a minion type from a type that you do not control. I obviously like this in conjunction with Bran, but also I just love Bran. Sorry. I was daydreaming for a second. I really, really think that this is a great economy unit and definitely lets you dig for things. Say Quillbore in and you want to maybe find a bacon or like something that will give you gems or additional spells. Just one scenario, but like I think that this is a great economy unit. Next is a card that has caused a lot of controversy. We're on tier 5 now with Leroy the Reckless. Leroy has a death rattle that reads, destroy the minion that killed this. This is a great counter for Soul Juggler. This is a great counter for Pyro Spawn. This is a great counter for large Divine Shielded minions. Like, it's Spore, but better. But also, a lot of people are talking about how strong Leroy is. Yes, Yes, Leroy is incredibly strong. This is an incredibly strong effect, considering that Spore couldn't break through a Divine Shield. Couldn't do it. Leroy can. Leroy can eliminate that pesky Pyro spawn at the back of the dragon board. But tripling Leroy doesn't make a lot of sense. So really you can run 2, right? In some situations with certain heroes, you can maybe run more than 2, but like that would be equivalent to reborning a Spore as Lich King and then reborning a Leroy equivalent. It's fine. You get 1 extra one. And since Arthas is no longer a thing, you don't get multiple extra ones. However, you can still do it with Khadgar. But anyways, in a pinch, I think that Leroy will definitely be very, very helpful, but I feel like I would reserve using him for turns 12 onwards. Like, I don't see Leroy joining a board until you're really at the end game teching against your opponent. And yeah, it's scary at that point, but then also you as the opponent play Zap and then Leroy's dead and your Zap is gone, but also Leroy is dead. So they're like, it's a tech, but it's not a completely uncounterable tech. I did want to deep dive into that one because I felt like I didn't have a chance to talk about that one because it wasn't revealed yet, and I felt very strongly about it. Next, on tier 5, we have the Critter Wrangler. This card art is adorable, by the way. After you cast a spellcraft spell, give that minion +2/+2. We haven't seen a lot of like battle cry buffs for Naga specifically, and this being on tier 5 is definitely helpful to start like base scaling. So when we didn't see this card yet, I was kind of talking about like a shaker comp, right? That like these effects don't appear to be a lot, and then you get into your actual combat phase and like maybe you played the storm scale and at the end of your turn you see the actual effect of what's about to happen, and then your board's kind of dead more or less when you're dead, so it makes easy pickings for an opponent. But the Critter Wrangler does give stats to minions, and we're seeing some scaling, and I think that's a very necessary, important thing. Also on tier 5, we have the Corrupted Myrmidon. This is a start of combat effect that doubles this minion's stats. This feels like probably like a 1-unit Andy comp situation. If I had this Corrupted on the board, I would probably dump a lot of spellcraft into it. I don't know how I feel about this one yet, actually. I want to see this one in play. It's the glow scale minion that gives a minion Divine Shield until next turn. So let's like +8 attack, +1/+1 Wind Fury, Divine Shield, 1-unit Andy, good to go. Now we're on to tier 6. These tier 6 minions are insane. We have Tide Mistress Athissa. After you cast a spell, give 4 friendly Naga +1/+1. Just that nice little cherry on top of the end of a spellcraft game. I feel like you rush to 5 and then you have just these massive good scaling units on a spellcraft board. My mind specifically is going there right now to a really beautiful spellcraft board, just based on like, you know, what we've seen with Naga and what they're capable of. Yeah. Okay, are you ready to watch me butcher this name? Orgozoa is a spellcraft to discover a Naga. Every single turn, you get to discover a Naga with this minion on your board. Notable that it is not a typed minion, so like feels more like a tech than it does anything else, or like just some economy unit. It feels like a nosy looter. I think I've mentioned this before, but it feels very nosy lootery to me, but without the golden effect. So, but you do get to discover as opposed to just get. So like you are searching for this triple Naga. You really want this triple Naga. You play the, can I just call it tender? Probably not. Tender is probably not something that it wants to be called. You play this Orgozoa and maybe potentially just luck into that triple because you get to discover. So it's a good thing. Also on tier 6, we're seeing Flat Tusk replaced by Dark Gaze Elder. After you spend 4 gold, play a blood gem on 4 friendly Quillbore. I mentioned it feels very Charlie to me. Could work well in like menagerie boards, especially because we have Nightmare Amalgam back. I like it. We'll see. Banted Queen, the card that has everyone a little bit scared. It is a neutral minion, non-typed, poisonous. And then at the start of your turn, for every other minion type, it gains either +5/+5, Wind Fury, Taunt, or Divine Shield. The RNG of this minion is insanity because you have no control. It happens at the start of your turn. So, like, the adapts that happen one time could not happen the next time. At least there's no plants. Okay, at least that's not a thing. Thank you. But also, well, I shouldn't say that because plants have come in handy. But I just... there was something about a vegan Amalgadon that just did not sit well with me. Anyways, Mantid Queen. This is a scary card. I want to see it in play before I further assess how scary it is. Because it is a non-typed minion, so like they don't impact each other. So if you run 2 Mantid Queens, that's technically losing an adapt for both of the Mantid Queens, right? Which does help. That helps a lot. Yeah, I think I have to wait on this one. I don't want to make an assessment yet because I don't feel confident in any assessment that I would make right now. And last but not least, we have Young Merc Eye on tier 6. At the end of your turn, adjacent Murlocs trigger their battle cries again. So we did learn that this is compatible with Bran. So you play Bran and those battle cries do trigger twice again at the end of your turn. So it does feel better to like hold on to Murlocs that maybe not you wouldn't necessarily hold on to. This is just strong stat scaling, which is great. It is a little bit scary, but I am wondering about the Murloc minion type overall with without Amalgadon, right? Murlocs are very good at gaining stats. There are the most battle cries with Murlocs, so this should be a really, really interesting situation. You just have to hit a Bran, but then you just scale so hard, and poison seems like a little bit less relevant, except for the Mantid Queen. But you Sephin, but there's a chance that you just never proc Sephin because you've scaled so hard at this point. So this will definitely be very interesting to see how it impacts Murlocs, because I think that the scaling now more than ever is so incredibly important. Now there is a limited event coming for Mercenaries. Unfortunately, I don't know a lot about the game mode, but you can check that out in the blog post as well. I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know what you think. I love seeing all these cards in one place because I think that there's so much really, really interesting synergies and things that we're going to be able to do. I am more than likely going to be forcing Menagerie comps and Quillbore Naga comps, and I want at least one really successful Spellcraft board tomorrow. I'm also interested in how Naga and Murloc play together. I think that this is going to be a really, really fun discovery process starting tomorrow when patch drops at 10 a.m. Pacific, noon Central. Yeah, I'm going to have a fun time tomorrow. Let's play. Let's do this. If you liked this video, remember to like and subscribe, and also let me know your thoughts in the comments about what you are excited to play tomorrow. If I missed any glaringly obvious synergies, throw them in the comments. Tell me what you think is going to be absolutely busted. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.